he's the best of the edge rushers on the board. Your eyeballs should tell you that, not what his arm length is. It's so crazy, but it's par for the course with the combine. At this point, if you want to combat the arm length issue, there are so many ways to do it. Michael Parsons was seen as having too short of arms. I think it was 31 inches and a half. Rueben Bain is a little bit under 31 inches. Ooh. Here's a list of other guys that have the same knock attached to them. Aiden Hutchinson, Terrell Suggs, Dwight Freeney, Hall of Famer Jared Allen, Daniel Jeremiah. He's not one of those analysts, by the way, we're referring to, that doesn't talk about the college game. He's one of the best out there, probably the best out there from NFL Network. Here he was on the combine coverage talking about Rueben Bain's arm length earlier today.
This is what I did. I have my thoughts on it as a scout, and I think every measurement matters, but I wanted to reach out to some defensive coordinators and see what they thought and how they would explain it. So I don't want to put words in their mouth, but this is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. What's the biggest issue with length? A lack of length. He said generally it's finishing. Not as good at extending and separating off blocks, not as good extending to get to the elbow or even wrapping around the quarterback. So then the follow-up question is, well, how would you overcome that, in your opinion, if you don't have length, like Bain? He said, I said leverage. He goes, for sure, explosion, using leverage to your advantage, having the ability to close that ground with your feet because you can't do it with your length.
By the way, there have been some reports. Teams measured Bain's arm at being longer than 31 inches in some cases, exceeding that number. So we'll see when his pro day arrives. It's going to be the most highly awaited arm measurement we've ever seen in NFL history. Avril Reese is one of the guys that's being seen as the top edge rusher this year out of Ohio State. Another one is David Bailey from Texas Tech. But come on here. Here are the cases for Rueben Bain over both of these players. When it comes to Reese, if part of your charm is that you play multiple positions well, but you lack the sample size of dominance at either specific spot, the way that you would see from a specialist otherwise, then the NFL adjustment could be more difficult for you. In other words, if you are big boying people at multiple spots on defense in college, you're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. You probably need to be great at one position. Travis Hunter running into this problem we saw this past season with the Jaguars. Reese said earlier this week, when asked what he's wanting to play in the NFL, what teams see him as, well, we actually have the sound. Here was Reese out of Ohio State answering the questions.
The majority of them ask me what I want to be, and then they show me like Sam, linebackers, and edges. So
when they ask you where you want to be, what do you tell them?
Tell them outside linebacker or edge.
Arvell Reese speaking there. He said today, outside edge. It happens to be the position that gets paid the most, by the way. That shouldn't be a big surprise, but just look at past precedent we've seen of this. We've seen this past decade multiple times. Guy comes from a terrific defense that's loaded, that's littered with defensive players that make it in the pros, plays multiple positions, and then gets to the NFL and isn't dominant. Isaiah Simmons, top 10 pick out of Clemson. Oh, you had Dexter Lawrence there, and Christian Wilkins, and a lot of really good players. Cleveland Farrell on that Clemson defense that was so strong. How about Jalen Walker at Georgia last year? He wasn't even the best edge rusher to come out of the Georgia Bulldog program a year ago. He wasn't even the best edge rusher among rookies on the Atlanta Falcons. James Pierce Jr. was, but playing multiple positions. Arvell Reese here plays for a defense that was the best in college football. Going to have 4 This is a program that's going to have 4 top 10 picks on it out of Ohio State. So that's why you prefer Rueben Bain over Reese. And then with Texas Tech's David Bailey, upside's the knock on Bailey. When you're drafted in the top 10, you want to be drafting a Hall of Famer. You want to be drafting a perennial Pro Bowler there. You want the highest upside you can get, ideally without a low floor. Bailey played his first 3 seasons at Stanford. Despite playing at the Southern California high school powerhouse Mater Dei, Bailey wasn't pursued heavily by the big boys out of state. His only visits were at Berkeley and UCLA and, yes, Stanford and USC. Meanwhile, Bain, he was a coveted commodity by all the heavy hitters. Oklahoma, Auburn, Alabama, Florida State. For years, he's been viewed as having a different talent ceiling than what Bailey has coming out of Texas Tech, transferring from Stanford to Lubbock. Plus, he's almost a full year younger than David Bailey is. So please pass me with the nonsense when talking about arm length. Watch the tape. Watch college football, because it feels like it reeks this time of year. That many of these so-called draft experts, they may watch the game a ton on Sunday, and until the season ends in college football, not paying all much attention to the one that takes part on Saturday. Did you find the middle names of the Knippel brothers, D-Day, or is that harder to find than we think? No luck on that regard. Just putting my hands together. Quick moment of prayer that none of the